All right, in this video, I'm going to cover just a few of the basics of APA formatting. So let's start with paragraphs as far as line spacing is concerned. APA requires double spacing throughout the entire paper. That's the cover page, the body page, and even your references page. So I'm just gonna select this entire document that right now it's actually single space, obviously. So I'm gonna select the entire document. I'm gonna hit Control A, and then I'm gonna go to the paragraph settings. And right here under before and after, these two need to be 0 because we want consistency in double spacing. And then under line spacing here, click the drop down and choose double, and then click OK. Now, the beginning of each line of each paragraph should be indented to the ½ inch mark. And it's just a matter of, if I move this back, it's just a matter of hitting your tab key, and then you'll see it on your ruler that it is indented to the ½ inch mark. So the beginning of each paragraph should be indented to the ½ inch mark. Now, let's continue. So that's line spacing, that's indentations. But what about what type of fonts? Because obviously these fonts are not acceptable by way of APA requirements. APA requires font size of 12 when it comes to Times New Roman. You can use 12 for Calibri, or you can even use 11 for Arial. But most cases, most of the time, the font size of 12 is sufficient. So let's change all of our fonts. I'm going to do a Control A, and I'm going to the font section of the ribbon, click the drop down, and in this space right here, I'm going to type Times New Roman. Basically, when you type Times, it'll come up and then just hit enter. And now all of our fonts are Times New Roman, but let's change the font size because remember, font size needs to be at least 12. So we'll change it to 12. And then you can click on your screen to remove the highlighting. Now, so those are fonts. And then margins. APA requires margins that are 1 inch top, bottom, left, and right. So if you go to the Layout tab, and then click on Margins, choose Normal. Now, sometimes you may have to scroll to find it, but choose Normal, 1 inch top, bottom, left, and right. So now our margins are correct. So that's the cover page, sample cover page. Notice it's double space. Notice that we have double spacing throughout the body here. And then let's go ahead and put our page numbers in the upper right hand corner. So if you go to the Insert tab, and then look over to the far right hand side for page number, click on page number, come down a little to top of page, move over, be careful as you move over, and then come all the way down to where you see plain number 3. It's showing you where that page number will appear in the document in the upper right hand corner, plain number 3, and we're going to click on it. So now we have page numbers on every page, and we're going to close the header footer. So that's page numbers. Also, make sure your document is portrait as far as the orientation. Go back to the Layout tab, click on Orientation, and make sure it's set at portrait and not landscape. And by the way, when it comes to double spacing, inside of a table, you can actually use either single spacing, 1.5, or double spacing. So tables, they give you a little freedom as it relates to line spacing. Now let's just observe some of the various ways that citations can be placed within the body of a paper. Most of the time, to keep it easy, you can either have a citation at the beginning of a sentence or you can have it at the end of a sentence. And in some cases, you can even place that citation in the center or middle of the sentence. And then in other cases, sometimes if you know this information or this idea came from these two authors, but then the rest of that sentence came from this particular author, you can actually have two different citations placed in a sentence. But to keep it simple, you can either start a sentence with a citation or you can end it. But there are other ways of doing it, obviously. So notice here are citations with two authors separated by an ampersand, comma, year of publication, and then close parentheses, and the period goes after the citation, not before. Notice also the headings. So there are level 1 headings. Level 1 headings are centered, upper lowercase bold. Level 2 headings are against the left margin and they're bold. So notice this is a level 1 and then this is a level 2 heading, similar to an outline. And there are other examples of citations such as your ETAL right here. What ETAL means is and others. So instead of typing out, and normally you have to have at least 3 or more authors. So if you found an article that has 3 or more authors that are listed, you don't have to type all of those authors' names in that particular citation. You can simply put open parentheses, author's last name, space, ET, space, AL, period, comma, space, year publication, close parentheses, period. Now, that's how you can do ETAL at the end of a sentence, but what about at the beginning? Notice here the difference between the two. And that's the key, understanding the differences in how citations should be formatted. The easiest way to remember everything that I'm trying to teach you is to create a simple cheat sheet for yourself so that you can have all of these examples and you can refer to them. After you have developed multiple papers over time, you will not need that cheat sheet. Here's an example of as cited in Peterson, ETAL, as cited in another source. Let's keep going. Now, so we've covered line spacing, we've covered margins, page numbers, font size, type, in-text citations. Let's get all the way down to the bottom of this paper. And I want you to notice that here's the last body page, and then the references page is the next page. All right, so now references should be formatted, as I said before, double space, but they also need hanging indentations. So we're going to highlight only the references, and by the way, references should be placed in alphabetical order. So we're going to highlight just the references, not the references heading. And we're going to go back to the Home tab. We're going to the paragraph settings icon right there. Before and after, of course, is 0. Line spacing is double. Hanging indentation is found under Special. I'm going to click the drop down, choose Hanging, and then click OK. And now you can see how your references are formatted with a hanging indentation. Now, the most obvious or best place to locate valid sources, scholarly peer-reviewed sources, would be within a school's library database, online library database. And those can be easily identified by the DOI number. You'll learn more about that within this ebook. But they are easily identified if you notice here. These are valid sources. Now, not every one of them will have that DOI. Some of them may look slightly different, similar to perhaps this one if it's coming from a book, or here's another one. But most, if not all of these, are valid sources. And notice how they're formatted as well. And really, it to make life easier for you, as I close this video, as I finish this up, to make life easier, it is just always a good idea to use library database sources. And that way you don't have to worry about if you decide to use a book, then a book reference is actually formatted slightly different from a journal, like a database journal. For example, I just saw one. So if you're pulling it from a book, see, notice actually it's coming from a journal, but I know I saw a book up here somewhere, right in here. Here it is. Notice how this one is formatted, but then notice how the database article is formatted. Okay, there is a slight difference. And that's why I said earlier, if you get a cheat sheet, you'll know the difference. But again, to make life easier for you, pull everything, do all of your research within a library database where you will find peer-reviewed scholarly sources that can be trusted. All right. So we've covered line spacing, we've covered margins, page numbers, font size, indent the first line of each paragraph, in-text citations, understanding the differences in how they're formatted, well, at least the basic differences. The headings, your level 1, level 2, references, page numbers, indentations, font type, font size, and all of that. So continue reading in this ebook, and I am certain this will help you as you continue to your journey as a student in writing effective papers with correct APA style formatting.